Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Knox Goes Away. Let's get straight into the storyline. John Knox, once a soldier and now a hitman working for the ruthless crime boss Jericho, meets his fellow assassin Muni at a diner. He orders a coffee as they begin discussing a bizarre case where a woman slowly poisoned her husband over 8 months by adding antifreeze to his coffee every morning. The waitress returns with their meals, and John absent-mindedly asks for another coffee, forgetting he already has one. As they eat, John seems uncomfortable. He tells Muni he's catching a flight out of town to deal with personal matters and will return the next day. Muni is concerned that John is taking a job without Jericho's approval, but John assures him it's nothing like that.
5 minutes to eat some food.
Hurry up, take 5 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
After their meal, John mistakenly walks toward the wrong car, but plays it off casually. He is actually headed to a doctor's appointment.
Doc?
He has been experiencing troubling symptoms and fears something is wrong. After running tests, the doctor informs John that he has a rare and aggressive form of Alzheimer's known as Keltyak disease. He's told that he has only a few weeks before his memory deteriorates completely, and he should begin making arrangements, like moving into a care facility.
You're looking at weeks, not months. If you have any arrangements to make, I suggest you do so as quickly as possible.
John spends much of his time with a street worker named Annie. He confides in her that today is his son Miles' birthday, someone he hasn't spoken to in years. Miles had cut ties after discovering John's real profession. John lies to Annie, saying he works for the IRS.
What do you do for a living?
I work for the IRS.
She notes this is the first time he's told her anything personal. Just as John is about to open up more, he gets a message and has to leave. Annie takes her payment and goes. John and Muni are then assigned a hit on a human trafficker. John tells Muni that this might be his last job for a long time, raising Muni's concern. They prepare for the hit. John enters through the front while Muni goes around back. Inside, John hears a shower running, but suddenly suffers a dissociative episode. He regains composure, heads to the bathroom, and kills both the target and a woman inside. After turning off the shower, John is hit by another episode. Startled by a figure, he fires his gun, only to realize he has accidentally shot Muni.
Christ.
Devastated, John apologizes as Muni dies. John stages the scene to look like a shootout and leaves. Jericho calls about the incident, but John lies, claiming he only heard gunfire.
I heard shots. Thank you.
Detective Zakari and Rawl arrive at the crime scene. Zakari immediately suspects something is off. She points out that if everyone killed each other, then who turned off the running shower?
Them. They killed him, all in a hurry. Bang, bang, bang. Who turned off the shower?
John visits an old friend named Fincer, asks him to cash out all his assets and quietly leave the business without alerting Jericho. He knows the botched hit won't stay hidden for long.
Got some paintings that you gotta sell. Some stones.
That's simple enough.
John gives Fincer a list of people to divide his wealth among once it's liquidated. Later, John retrieves his stored paintings and brings them home. There's a knock at the door. He grabs his gun but is shocked to find a bleeding man with an injured hand. His son, Miles. Inside, Miles is visibly shaken. He confesses to having killed a man. He tells John about his teenage daughter, Kaylee, who got pregnant by a much older man she met online. Miles went to confront him but lost control when the man mocked his daughter, stabbing him to death in a rage. John is surprised Miles came to him of all people. Miles explains he thought John could help. After all, John is a killer. Though uneasy, John agrees. He takes the bloody knife and tells Miles to strip and take a shower to clean off the evidence. He instructs him to go home and keep quiet. John then goes to the dead man's house, finding the body still there. Blood is everywhere, even on the ceiling. John starts to clean up, writing himself notes to stay on track. He uses a turkey baster to collect the dead man's blood and takes some of his hair. He then ambushes and knocks out the security guard monitoring the surveillance footage, deletes the footage showing Miles, and returns home. He stores the blood sample in the fridge and saves the glass Miles drank from. Meanwhile, Miles is at home, still overwhelmed by the incident. His wife notices his injury, and Miles breaks down, confessing everything.
I have to tell you something.
Detective Akari leads the investigation into the earlier murders. She notes that Muni, known as one of Jericho's hitmen, was an odd presence at the crime scene. She also finds it suspicious that John was missing, especially since traffic cams caught both men together minutes before the killings. John's background makes him even more intriguing. He has 2 PhDs, was once a university professor, and only served time for tax evasion after being ratted out. His past as a U.S. military deep recon officer adds to their interest. The detectives now aim to bring him in as a cooperating witness. Just then, they get an alert. There's been a second crime scene. This time, the victim is a member of the Brotherhood. John visits an old friend and mentor, Xavier Crane, showing him the list he's compiled and asking for help to execute the plan and cover his tracks. Xavier, concerned about John's deteriorating mental state, warns him the plan is risky but agrees to check in regularly and keep him focused for as long as possible.
I know I could pull this off. The question is, can you?
Detective Akari and the other officers arrive at a gruesome crime scene. There's no murder weapon, but a knife is missing from the kitchen block. Akari identifies the victim as Andrew Palmer, a low-level dealer for the Brotherhood with a known history as a PDF file. They question the building's security guard, but he has no idea who the attacker was. Elsewhere, Knox is at home when he hears the doorbell, but can't remember what the sound means. A knock follows, and he opens the door to find Annie, completely forgetting she was supposed to visit.
Kind of knotted up.
That's why I'm here.
As she talks to him, Annie notices something is off. While changing, she finds John's hidden paintings under the bed and asks about their value. John begins to dissociate quickly, prompting Annie to suggest she should leave. As she heads out, she notices a bookmarked neurology book and takes a photo of the page with her phone. Back home, John struggles to hold on to his thoughts. Xavier calls, reminding him to follow his list and to remove the password from his phone before he forgets it. John fears he's running out of time.
I'm running out of time.
He lifts Miles' fingerprints from a coffee cup and plants them on the bloody knife. He still has his bloodied clothes. John calls Xavier about a key he has, but Xavier can't help. Eventually, John locates the right lockbox and retrieves a stash of cash. John meets a nervous Miles at a diner. Miles explains that he took Kay to an abortion clinic and is nearing a breaking point. He keeps insisting he's not a killer like John, but John reminds him he is, and needs to stay calm. John warns that the cops will connect Kay to the murdered gangster soon, and Miles must keep it together. Miles then confesses he never hated John growing up. In fact, he once admired him, until he learned the truth about John's life and feared becoming like him. Yet here they are.
Your routine. Do what you would normally do.
Meanwhile, Akari and the police determine that Palmer's murder scene was staged. They prepare to bring Knox in for voluntary questioning.
I think it's time we had a chat with John Knox.
John parks outside Miles' home and watches the family leave. He then picks the lock and sneaks into the apartment, planting the bloody knife in a vent and loosening a screw to make it noticeable. He also places Palmer's hair on Miles' coat and dumps the bloodied clothes in the trash. Later, while out for lunch, Miles sees a man glance at Kay and, unable to control himself, confronts and attacks the stranger. Detectives Rawl and another officer show up at John's home and ask him to come in for questioning. John agrees. During the interview, Akari confronts him about the stage crime scene and her suspicions about Muni's death. John deflects by claiming he recently spoke to Akari's father, but she reveals her father has been dead for 12 years. The detectives are confused, but John offers no explanation. Instead, he says they have no proof linking him to Muni's death and leaves, saying he has unfinished business. John returns to his car and checks off the next item on his list. He heads to his ex-wife Ruby's house. Hearing no one inside, he uses a hidden key to enter. For a brief moment, he thinks he's home and calls for Miles. As he looks through the fridge, Ruby appears with a gun, shocked to see him. John tells her he's cashing out and wants to leave money for her and Miles. When she asks how long he'll be gone, John implies this is the end. Ruby, stunned, suspects his criminal past has caught up with him. As John leaves, she tells him she still loves him and wants to see him again. But John tells her there won't be a next time. By the following week, John's memory is fading. He's dissociating again when Annie visits. He barely recognizes her, even calling her Ruby. Annie doesn't protest. She asks about his cash out. John tells her he has the money and the paintings and just needs to retrieve his stones, which are to be divided in thirds. Annie is supposed to receive a share. Annie gently reveals that she is not Ruby. Meanwhile, Ikari's team breaks into Palmer's phone and uncovers evidence of his PDF file activities. They also discover he had been regularly meeting a girl, who turns out to be Kay.
Girl in Silver Lake by the name of Kaylee Iris Knox.
Okay.
John makes his way to an old cabin he used to own. Breaking in, he retrieves his stones from beneath the floorboards. As he walks back to his car, he suffers another episode and becomes disoriented, unsure of where he is. John gets lost in the woods and ends up spending the entire day there. Meanwhile, Miles and his family are brought in for questioning. Ikari interviews Miles alone, showing him surveillance footage of him leaving Palmer's residence. Miles denies knowing anything, but soon learns that the police are searching his house and have discovered all the items John had hidden there. Miles is shocked by the overwhelming evidence against him and is informed that he is under arrest for Palmer's murder. A few hours later, John is found disoriented in the woods by a man who brings him into town. Xavier shows up, and John doesn't even remember calling him. Xavier drives John home. John confesses that he only remembers the past 3 hours and believes his time is coming to an end. He asks Xavier why he took him in after the army all those years ago. Xavier simply replies that John has a brilliant mind. Xavier reminds John of the final 2 steps he needs to complete before everything is over. John is afraid of what lies ahead, and Xavier understands. John asks for help cashing out and heads inside to retrieve the money. There, he notices something is off. His gun is missing from its hiding spot. Suddenly, he's confronted by 3 people led by Annie, who have come to rob him. They demand the stone, but John distracts and attacks them, killing one with a book and shooting the other 2. He finds Annie hiding in a corner and points his gun at her.
Knox?
He reveals that she was originally meant to get a cut, but her greed got the better of her. He aims the gun, and the screen cuts to black. Later, Xavier is seen dividing John's cash.
Take off the last name. Dog.
No problemo.
John visits Miles in prison. Miles is confused and hurt, unsure why John betrayed him. John reveals he knows Miles was the one who turned him in for tax evasion years ago, which led to John serving 6 years in prison. Miles denies it, but John walks away.
Listen to me! Why would I do that, even if I knew?
Soon after, forensic analysis reveals that the evidence linking Miles to Palmer's death was planted. The blood had been frozen, and the fingerprints contained packing tape residue. Investigators also discovered the surveillance footage had been doctored, timestamps altered and spliced. Ikari is left disappointed. John burns his notebook and receives a call from Xavier, reminding him of the final step.
I'll make the call, and it's over.
Xavier making a phone call. Ikari receives a tip from an anonymous caller, Xavier, who reports that John Knox has 3 dead bodies in his home. When police storm the house, John is calmly waiting for them.
Let's go.
They find carefully placed evidence that makes it clear John had framed Miles.
It was him.
Ikari meets with Miles and drops all charges. She asks about the cut on his hand, and remembering John's words, Miles tells her he cut himself on glass at John's house, something the investigators also found. Ikari is puzzled. Why would John frame his own son and then turn himself in so easily? Miles remembers John's accusation and admits that he was the one who turned John in years ago.
The tax case he went to prison for. I was the one who called the IRS.
True or not, all blame now falls on John Knox, and he is sent to prison. Ikari visits John, hoping for answers about Muni's death, but John is mentally gone, unable to remember anything. Miles also comes to see him and crosses paths with Ikari. She asks why he's there. Miles simply says John killed his daughter's attacker. and that he'd do it all over again. When Miles speaks to John, John doesn't recognize him, but vaguely remembers having a son who loved football. Miles breaks down in tears, tells John he loves him, and leaves. Ruby and Miles receive their share of the money. Annie, having survived, receives John's library of books. John is moved to a medical facility. The final shot is of him staring blankly through a window, lost in his mind.